Hello beautiful people, my name is Bridget and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is a first impressions, I'm gonna say review in the title just because that looks better, but it's a first impressions of the Bloodlust palette by Jeffree Star Cosmetics. This is his purpley palette and today we're going to give you my first impressions, do a look together, do some swatches, and all that good jazz. So without any further ado, let's get into the video. Okay guys, before we get started, if you're not subscribed to my channel already, I'd greatly appreciate it if you did that. Be awesome. And I do review a lot of Jeffree Star stuff, so I guess you knew this video was coming. And again, I will be doing 2 more videos with this palette. I will be doing a 3 looks 1 palette, so we'll do 3 more looks of this palette together. And then I'll be doing an in-depth review where we break down each shade, tell you how it performs, what I think, and what I think about the palette overall for the price. This palette retails for $54. His original Beauty Killer and Androgyny palette started out at $45. Then when it came to Blood Sugar, Blue Blood, and everything like that, they came up to $52. This palette is $54, so it's gone up in price by $2 for this palette. It is made of a velvet, has like this embossed plasticky crown star thing on the front, and then this is what the back of the palette looks like. This is bigger than my head. It is enormous. It's enormous palette. It's very thick too. She a thickum. And we have this really weird ball clasp on the front, which is like strange. So the packaging, enormous, really bulky, and I feel like a lot of us are not going to use every single Jeffree Star palette we own as a display piece, which I feel like is a lot of the arguments for people justifying why the shapes are so weird for his stuff, but not everyone's going to use every palette as a display piece, so I do think it's kind of ridiculous packaging. However, it is stunning. So let's go ahead and do some swatches of this palette before we get into it. I do want to mention that I did get a really good reception from this palette changing the background on Twitter. When I did that like a week or 2 ago when this got announced and revealed, people really got a good vibe from changing the background. So if you want me to do that in future things, I will certainly do that. I do not think this palette is lustful. I don't think it's as bloodlustful as the title suggests. However, it's a really pretty color scheme. But a lot of them are really light shades, so I don't know. Let's go do some swatches and then we'll do a look together. Alright, here's the first half of the palette swatched out. Obviously, a swatch is not the true test of a palette. We need to test it on the eyes. I will say this shade Wet Jewel, which is right here, and is also the light pink in the palette, is really pretty, but it's just a glitter with no base pigment to it. Like, I don't even know if you can see it on my arm. It's just a glitter. I do quite enjoy this pink shade, Pink Magic, right after the green in the palette, and this blue did not swatch hardly at all. So this is the first half. Let's move on to the second half of the swatches. Alright, so here's the second half of the palette swatched out. This red, Bleeding Heart, Holy Pigment. This black glitter and this red, so pigmented. However, the red one, very hard. When you swatch into it, it's a very hard shadow, which is very strange. So I definitely want to test that in a future video. And then the rest of the purples in this palette, really nice. I have not liked some of Jeffree's previous purples, as I said before, but these are really nice. I'm not too crazy about how this green shade swatched out, but again, as a matte green, it's probably not going to swatch the best. The taupey shade, called Monarchy, so smooth, so nice. He's really nailed his neutral formula. So this is the second half. It's very nice. Alright guys, so let's show you what it comes like in the big box. This is like way bigger than my head. It is an enormous sized palette. It's even bigger than I thought it was. I already thought it was big and bulky and stuff, but it's so big. So when you open it up, the palette is inside, and I know I saw like the promo and everything for this palette. However, I didn't expect this to be so freaking big. Like, it's enormous. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to complain about the packaging stuff in the intro, so I'm not going to talk about this, but you can't store anything against this big ball here. And when you open it up, ta-da! This is what the palette looks like. There's it a little farther away in case the lights wash it out, but the color scheme I think is prettier in person than it is online. So yeah, let's get into it. This actually feels a lot smoother. It's kind of like a fake vinyl-y kind of texture. This isn't velvet itself. This isn't either. I thought these little filigree pieces would be velvet too. It's not, which is good considering you don't get powder on your velvet. But let's go ahead and get started with the look. I'm going to prime my lids with a little bit of concealer and then we'll get started. Okay, now that our lids have some concealer, I'm going to take this first shade, which is Your Majesty, which is like a kind of bone whitey kind of color. It's more of a gray than like a bone color, I guess. It's like a gray white. I'm going to take this on this little blending tapered E35 brush. I tapped in here and there's a ton of fallout with this shade. I don't know if you can tell, but there's a lot on top of the shadow too, but you can't really see against the white. But this is a very powdery shadow, which might be okay. I'm just going to buff this under our brow, so it makes the colors in our crease are going to be easier to blend out. So I'm just going to set underneath here so it doesn't crease on us. I do want to point out before I use the palettes too much, a couple of these shades look really crumbly, and that one shade is really powdery. So the shades Sworn Enemy and Bleeding Hearts, which is this one, I'm going to show you up close. Hopefully you can see. It's very crumbly up top, like it's very fragile and could break. And then this Bleeding Heart one too on the top looks very crumbly, especially this one though. It looks like it potentially could leave a lot of fallout under your eyes, or it could break real easily if you travel with this. So I wouldn't recommend traveling with the palette that has shades like this that look very fragile. But I'm going to take this little domed firm blender brush. It's an E44 from Sigma, and I'm going to dip into our first like shade since we tried out a matte shade that doesn't show up on me first. Let's start off with Deviant, which is this very pastel shade. It is very, very light, so I want to see if I pack this on with a more firm brush that also is very powdery, if it will show up. I'm not going to take off any excess on the brush with this, because a really, really light shade, any excess, I'm just going to put it directly on my eye. I don't want to tap off the excess and then maybe not show up. But so far, it looks pretty good. Like, it's a very powdery shadow, left a lot of kickback in the pan, but it's showing up really nicely for being a very pastel shade. Yeah, there's a lot of kickback. It's kind of like the amount you get from an Anastasia shadow. Like if you have soft blend around Renaissance, you know there's a lot of kickback in the pan with those kind of mattes. That's the kind of similar texture of these first two we used. So in the inner crease, we have that light lavender, and I must say I quite like how it showed up. I don't know with like camera lighting and stuff how it's going to seem to you, but in person you can definitely tell I have a nice lavender over the inside of my crease, and I want to build that color up. So I'm going to take Vivid Mood, which is this light lavender. I was kind of confused if I wanted to use a different, like maybe a more pinky one, but we're going to use this one since it's supposed to be like a purple palette, and I'm going to add to that inner crease. So I just want to deepen that up with this shade. This one doesn't have as much kickback in the pan as the other two did. This is the difference with Vivid Mood on top versus just the light lavender we did before. It's definitely a pretty color. And again, not as much kickback in this one. I found this one very soft and it's blending out really effortlessly. I like this one a lot more than the other two. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with the color we have over our inner crease. I'm going to take a E35, which is like a more loose blending brush for our outer crease area so we can kind of buff that out. And what I want to do is deepen it up. So I'm going to take the shades, ooh, let's not just do purples though. Let's take Scandal Water. What does that even mean? What does Scandal Water mean? It is this like blue. It's a bluey, purpley, indigo-y type of color maybe. This one again didn't have barely any kickback in the pan, and I'm not tapping off the excess for these kind of lighter shades. And I'm just going to tuck this in our outer crease. This one's not really wanting to blend for me. It's really sticking. Let's say I put it right here. Right? And then it doesn't really want to blend out for me. It very much wants to stick where I put it, which is slightly irritating. And Jeffree's blue formula, usually like fantastic, but this one's not blending for me no matter how much I work it in. It also didn't want to blend over here. You can kind of see it's stuck where I put it. So I'm just going to build on top of it because honestly that shade's giving me a lot of issues, and I think maybe I should do some more looks with this palette and test out in different variations of how to use that shadow because it's really not blending whatsoever. So I'm going to take Dungeon now, which is like this gray purple-ish shade. It's a deeper shade. I'm going to lightly tap that. It picked up quite a bit. I'm going to tap off that excess. Barely any kickback in the pan, hardly any at all. And I'm going to darken our outer crease area because I feel like the other shade just really got stuck somewhere and I want it to be nicely blended out. So hopefully this darker shade will help us do that. Okay, so here's our Dungeon shade. This was a lot easier to blend out. We kind of covered up what we had for the blue. You can see a little bit right in between. But honestly, I'm kind of glad we covered the blue because it was not working for me whatsoever. Again, I'm going to have to test it some more ways and see what I can do with it. But I want to do a finger application with a shimmer, a metallic shimmery shade, and I also want to do a brush application. So for the inner crease area, I'm going to apply it with a damp brush. This is the NARS number 7 brush. So for our inner lid area, I'm going to take... Oh, see, there's so many cute shimmer options. Let's take something that doesn't look super fragile because I feel like those apply better. The super fragile ones apply better with a finger. So let's give it the best chance of working. We're going to take the crown, which is this nice lavender shimmer. We're going to apply it with a damp brush. And for the outer crease, I'm going to use my finger and apply... We don't have any dark shimmers in here. This is like the darkest shimmer we have. I mean, I guess the green is a dark shimmer. Let's just take... We'll take Pink Magic, so it's super fun, and we'll apply that with a finger to the outer crease area, or outer lid area, I'm sorry. So take the crown with a damp brush, applying very smoothly, very evenly. It looks lovely. So the Pink Magic shade I said we're going to put on the outer lid feels a little more gritty. Let's see if we can see the texture on my finger. It's a little more gritty in texture, but I'm going to just press it down and see how it applies. It's really pretty, actually. It's one of those shimmery metallic-y shades that make your lid look wet, and I live for that kind of thing. This pink does not match our look, but again, we don't have any darker mattes in this, or darker shimmery metallics in this palette to make a really cohesive look. And I'm just taking our blending brush from before and just mushing the shimmers into the matte so it's very mushed together, I guess. Not very professional terms here, but is what it is. So the shade I've been really interested in using this entire time, but I didn't want to make a super pinky pink look, even though we did anyways, is the shade High King. This shade to me is super interesting. I don't know if it's because it's a mix between a pink and a purple, and it kind of reminds me of doll parts, but like in darker form. But I also want to use this Monarchy shade because it's the only neutral in the palette. So I'm going to take High Key, which is this beautiful shade, on an E55 shader brush from Sigma, and I'm just going to dust it under my lower lash line. I should have worn a wig for this because I feel like this does not match my hair. Alright, here's our eyeshadow look. I'm going to go pop on some lipstick, mascara, lashes, and stuff, and I'll be right back to show you the finished look and tell you what I think first impressions of this palette. Alright guys, so this is the finished look. What do we think? Let's look at it up close. I think it's very cute. Like, it's very cute. Probably should have worn a wig because it doesn't really match my hair, but also I don't think it looks too terrible. Anyways, let's talk about what I think of this look overall and what I think of the palette so far. Because first impressions, I don't have an in-depth review. I haven't tried every single shade yet. But first impressions, packaging, enormous. This thingy, enormous. Velvet, kind of weird. Overall, most of the shades I used were powdery but blended out really nicely and really pigmented, or like the blue shade for me was not powdery at all. It was very solid matte, but it didn't want to blend, so that's the issue I had with that. I did enjoy this shade right here to darken it up, even though I don't think it was true to color on the eyes. Again, I'm going to try this a bit more to see if I like it more. I kind of don't like when people just do a first impressions and that's the only thing they do, but I mean, I don't know. Like, if someone does a first impressions and that's all they use the palette ever again, like, I don't know. I guess sometimes I do that too, but I feel like with a palette that you think a lot of people purchase, maybe I should try it more, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to have 2 other videos using this palette, so I'm going to do a 3 looks 1 palette that does not include this look, so we're going to have 3 more looks using this palette. I'm going to take notes on each shade that I use, see what I think about it, and then we'll do an in-depth review going shade by shade, telling you what I think about the palette and giving overall ratings. So we're going to do a 3 looks 1 palette and an overall in-depth review on this, so if you want to see that, please subscribe down below. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I'm glad I picked this up. It's prettier in person than I really thought. I'll leave a link to it down below because it is still available. I heard a lot of people on Twitter and stuff saying, oh my god, this palette didn't sell, it's such a fail, and I really don't like that mentality. I feel like just because something doesn't sell out doesn't mean it's not a fail. We don't know how much stock he ordered, and I like that it's still in stock. That means it's not this, you have to get it immediately, kind of pressuring you thing. I like that you can see reviews, see how you feel about a palette, and it's still available for you to buy. There's no pressure for you to buy it immediately when it launches. Whether it's good or not, you don't know yet. So I like that it's still available. I don't like the whole FOMO thing of makeup launches, so I'm glad it's still available. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!